Okay, this
Hello.
is fun. Hello.
So, uh, why don't we start by you introducing yourself and where you went to vet school and how many years you've been a vet and sort of your interest in. Um, let's start there.
I'm Molly Yazwinski. I am currently a veterinarian here in Fairbanks. I went to vet school at Cornell University in upstate New York. Graduated in 2012, and I've been up here ever since. I came up here to Fairbanks initially right after I graduated from high school, and I worked for Dave Munson and Susan Butcher for about 4 months. My aunt has lived up here since the 70s, and she and Susan Butcher were very, very good friends. So I came up here actually in kindergarten and then again in high school, and my mom did some dog mushing in the 70s on the East Coast, so I've always kind of been aware and involved with the dogs. And then my connection to Susan and David was essentially they're almost like family, so.
Mm-hmm. Super. So we have come up with some questions that we've had and we think other people may have.
Okay.
And they're in no particular order. It was just what came to mind as we were writing them down on our to-do list.
Yeah.
So I'll just go through them and see what happens.
Sure.
Is it dangerous to feed a puppy too much? Can it cause problems for a dog?
Yes.
Okay.
What with growing puppies, and it becomes more of a concern with puppies that are going to grow up into be active dogs and larger dogs. Mm-hmm. We don't want them to grow too fast. Mm-hmm. They're going to grow and reach their adult size kind of essentially regardless of how fast they get there. Mm-hmm. And though if they grow too fast and if they get too heavy, so we don't want them to grow too fast, we don't want them to get fat. If that happens, they seem to be at increased risk for what we kind of broadly term developmental orthopedic disease. So we can start to see like the radius and the ulna, so the bones in the foreleg of the dog start to grow at the wrong rate compared to each other, and then you'll look at the dog and their legs will not look like they're properly aligned. Also, we will become concerned about those dogs that may be predisposed to actually have like clinical hip dysplasia, bad hips, that it seems like puppies that are fed too much or grow too fast have a higher incidence of actually becoming problematic and lame down the road from poor conformation compared to pups that grow at a more reasonable rate.
And so to know a good amount of food, like a dog food bag gives you these, between this much and this much is appropriate.
Yeah.
How do you know where within that range, because it's a significant difference.
It's
really.
A significant difference, and that's I look at that as a ballpark.
Yeah.
And because every puppy is different in their own individual genetic makeup, and then how active are they in daily life. But the goal is to feed them such that they maintain the appropriate kind of lean but not skinny body condition as they grow. Puppies that are going to grow into larger breeds dogs, so maybe their adult body weight's going to be 60 pounds and greater, ideally should be fed a good quality food that's formulated and labeled for large breed puppies, as opposed to like a lot of the dogs that I have that are 40-50 pound dogs. I raise them on 30-20 performance dog food from puppies, but the larger breed, larger dogs, they're growing more. They're growing for a longer period of time. It's a significantly longer time before their growth plates close. They are the ones that we see more orthopedic problems and developmental problems with. They need to have a food that's got the right amount of calories balanced with the calcium and the phosphorus and the calcium phosphorus ratio. And if that gets out of balance, then we'll see more of problems as they're growing. Yeah.
And I should trust the bag of dog food. Like if the bag of dog food says that we're good for large breeds, then I can say, okay, they're good for large breeds.
Ideally, what you should do is, if you're going to want to feed a given brand of dog food, is to call that company and interrogate them. And I can give you a nice printout with the list of questions of what you should ask that company, and if they can't adequately answer those questions, you probably don't want to feed that brand of dog food. I mean, I can't keep track of all the different brands of dog food that are in the store, so I give people the questions. I say, if you're not going to go for one of the big, it is one case where I do say go for one of the big brands, Hill Science Diet, Purina Pro Plan, IAMS, the IAMS Eucaniva. If you're going to go for another, I personally just don't have time to keep track of all that. If you're going to go for any other brand, and even it's even worth it to call those bigger companies, but definitely anything else, I say you got to call the company, you got to ask them these questions that are related to, do they employ a veterinary nutritionist? What do they have for quality control measures for all of their raw ingredients? And then what do they have for quality control management within their processing plant? Do they actually process their own food, or do they contract that out to another company? And so questions like that if they say, oh no, we don't have a veterinary nutritionist, or we don't have good quality control measures in place for their raw ingredients, I say I'm not going to feed that. I'm not going to feed that food.
What brand of dog food do you use?
Animet.
And they're not a big name, but you're comfortable with them?
They're not a big name, but I know the veterinarian who started that company, and I know the people who advise him, and he's a veterinary nutritionist, and who formulate that food, and I'm confident in their oversight and formulation of the food.
Cool.
I fed Purina in the past. I just can't get the food up here.
Uh-huh.
So.
How often should a puppy see a vet?
A puppy should see a vet definitely initially around 8 weeks old for an initial exam, and that's about when they should be starting their vaccines. And then we generally do 3 rounds of a parvo distemper vaccine, which would mean them coming back in to see their vet every 3 to 4 weeks. So through that, basically that brings them up through the age of about 16 weeks. And if the puppy has been doing well and seems happy and healthy, then I think they're probably good to go to not see their vet for a little while. And they need to be dewormed during that period as well.
Okay, so not a lot.
Not necessarily.
As long as they're healthy and they're getting their shots, it's all good. Okay. What are some puppy development markers?
They do go through all puppies from about 8 weeks to about 16 to 20 weeks, a period where they're not so much afraid of things. They are open to new experiences and to learning new things, meeting new people, interacting with new dogs, and being able to do that without always being worried about what's going to happen. So that time period is extremely important for them in terms of social development, and then being able to learn how to experience the world, how to not be afraid, how to get along with other dogs and other people. And if they aren't properly exposed to new experiences during that time, then we lose the opportunity to easily introduce them to new things. And then after that, they do have a stronger fear response. And so that's something that I see way too much of, are older dogs that are just afraid of the world and dangerous to themselves and dangerous to other animals and dangerous to people. So I think when I see a puppy for their initial puppy visit with me, I say this puppy needs to go to a puppy obedience and socialization class, like a puppy kindergarten, with a established, knowledgeable trainer, and it should be a puppy class with other puppies, not just in the vast majority of situations, not just a one-on-one puppy and trainer, because this is the time period when they learn about the world. But they do pretty much all puppies within that kind of fear-free period, they do all seem to have a short time where they suddenly become afraid of things, sometimes just for a few days. And so I also just caution people to be aware of that probably at some point during this time they're going to have we don't know when it's going to happen, but just to be aware of that. So to make sure that as much of their life is a positive experience, and to avoid, like I tell people, don't take them to the dog park. Because they're at risk for exposure to infectious diseases that we would prefer that they not acquire, but also to minimize the chance that they're going to meet some big dog that's just going to come in. Whoom. And fear is develops a powerful emotional response, and we remember things that happen to us that are bad, and it's hard to get that out of the brain. So that time period, they need to have positive interactions, and not fearful ones.
So positive experiences, positive interactions, so that for the rest of their life they feel safe and comfortable.
They feel safe and comfortable and confident in their own skin, and they know how to deal with people, and they know how to interact with other dogs without immediately being on the defensive. Because it's really, really hard if they are always fearful and on the defensive. It's really hard to reverse that behavior and to teach them that, okay, you don't have to be afraid of the world.
Super, great. How do you train? Our dogs are big puppies. They didn't go into a dog box like on the back of your truck till they were like a year old or something. And they hate it back there. They're like howling and screaming, let me out of this prison. And with these new puppies we got, we want to make sure they're sort of comfortable back there in a dog box, because at this point we have 6 dogs.
Yeah.
And while they fit in the truck,
tight squeeze, yeah. I
So
can tell you that.
We have to have a way to transport these dogs, safely and comfortably and happily.
Yeah.
So how can we make our 2 puppies comfortable in the dog box?
So in the past, I've just with Zazu, who's walking around here, like they started having to go in the dog box when they were somewhere in the 4 to 8 month old range, and they just got put in the dog box, and away we drive. And some of them were happier with the situation than others. But I think a better way to do it is to kind of treat it the similar way that we would to crate training for your average pet dog, and say, well, we're going to feed you your meals in the and I know a number of mushers who actually do this, like, all right, we're going to feed you your meals in the dog box. We're going to put you in the dog box and give you hi Zumi give you your favorite treats and to put them in the box, but not immediately put them in and then drive, because for some dogs do experience motion sickness, and I've had that happen with one of my own dogs. Like, put them in the box and they get so nauseous, and then they equate dog box, nausea, vomiting, and they are either going to just hate that box, or they're going to refuse. Like, you're going to call them to come over to you, and they're going to run away from the truck. So I would start with putting them in the box and giving them the treats, feeding them in the box. And then once they're used to being in the box and they're comfortable in there, then say, okay, we're going to put you in the box. We're going to go for a short drive to one of our favorite play places. We're going to get out. We're going to have a fun time. We're going to get back in the box. And then they equate box with, okay, I'm happy being in there, and I get in the box and we go somewhere fun. And then it becomes much less of a problem.
So our puppies, both our big sets of puppies and our little set of puppies are very rough with each other. And it's play.
Yep.
But every now and then the play escalates into, like, they're actually fighting and being a little bit too aggressive, and we break them up and yell at them and they stop. Is there any downside for puppies roughhousing?
I don't think there's really a downside, as long as the roughhousing doesn't get to be too rough. And that part of that play is learning how to play and learning how to interact and how to communicate. There are some dogs that have more of a, I don't necessarily know if I'd call it a dominant personality, but that tend to be a little rougher. And in that case, it's kind of trying to gauge and figure out, okay, at what point are they going to get to be playing too rough, and to try to break things up or change the direction of the play before that happens. And then I see more of a problem, like if they're kind of fighting over, like, if one dog is a resource guarding, is like, I don't want you to get this. And so that, I think part of that is managing dogs and preventing that situation from happening in the first place. And I think some value there is even with the sled dogs is going through the basic obedience and teaching them commands like leave it, and teaching them how to be able to walk by something, and even if it's something really, really tempting like rotten fish, like to say, oh no, we can walk by that and we can ignore that. And some of that is just it is part of their development too, and learning over time.
Okay. What are some mistakes you've seen people do with puppies? What are some of the things you've seen come into the clinic and you're like, oh my gosh, you're doing this all wrong?
And I think I see too many people that the puppy's doing something wrong, and they get after the puppy when they're doing something wrong, but the puppy has no guidance as to, well, what's the right thing to do. And I feel like most puppies, if they're rewarded for doing what they're supposed to do, and you can kind of ignore something that's not like they're not hurting them, as long as they're not hurting themselves or hurting another dog or a person, just ignoring the behavior that you don't want, they're going to perform the behavior or do what's necessary to get the reward, get the good thing. And the more that we get after and get mad at them, they become fearful, and we don't have such a good bond with them. Whereas if you can reward what they're supposed to do, they're amazingly creative, and they'll start to be like, okay, what else can I do to get rewards? And then it's amazing what they can do. But I think you get better results by trying to use as much positive reinforcement as opposed to negative. And often these days I think, well, okay, if the dog is doing something wrong, what am I doing wrong that's enabling the dog to do that behavior that I don't want? And how can I change the situation or the environment such that the dog is no longer able to perform that behavior that I don't want, or to create a situation where there's an alternative. I can ask them to do an alternative behavior that gets them a bigger reward, and something that they would rather do than whatever it is that they're doing wrong. But I think the other key thing is just not to, I think it's the same with like kids, or like, and if we talk about athletic dogs, is not to expect them to do more than what we've prepared them to do, whether it's physically or mentally. Like, they need time to grow and to learn, and you can't ask them to be 5 steps ahead of where they are. Yeah.
So I'm gonna throw you a curveball.
Uh-oh.
Take your time. What is a good metaphor for a puppy? Puppy, or simile. A puppy is like.
They're puppies.
Puppy is like a puppy.
Yeah.
Other than a puppy, we need some compare and contrast. How about I give that to you, and I'll ask another question. Let that just sort of bounce around a little bit in the back of your head. Is it bad for puppies to eat sticks? Because we got one who's eating a lot of sticks, and like there's a lot of fiber in his stool.
As long as he chews up the sticks into tiny enough pieces, he'll be okay. But sometimes I will see them get the appropriate length stick stuck.
Yeah,
I have seen a puppy swallow a stick like this that punctured his esophagus, and he didn't make it. So as long as they chew them into small enough pieces.
You chew them. You use a lot of them.
Yeah.
The smell's melting, and they're digging up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just this one dog. The other dogs don't care about it.
I might try to have always something available else to give him.
Yeah, we've got bones out there. We've got a couple chew toys, and he wants the sticks. He'll just chew on them.
The other thing is to give him a bigger stick that he can't that he really just has to gnaw on like a bone, as opposed to one that he easily breaks into the wrong size pieces.
That's a good idea.
I've seen them also get like smaller splinters like stuck in their teeth and such too. But
so when we heard of someone who took the puppy from their mom to socialize them, and it was I thought it was maybe a little too young. When should a puppy leave their mom? When's a window to leave a mom and go out and meet other dogs?
Window to leave mom. Most puppies are actually fully weaned at 6 weeks. Like by 6 weeks, most, especially if there's a litter of more than 4 puppies, the mom's like, all right, I'm done with these things. So really by 6 weeks, mom has weaned them. They are eating solid food. That would be about the earliest that I would have a puppy leave mom and other puppies, but into such a situation where they would still be able to interact with other dogs and puppies in a safe, clean environment.
So when you get your puppy home,
Like ideally somewhere in the 6 to 9 weeks is probably the optimal time for a puppy to go to their new home.
and when the puppy arrives at their new home, what should a new home have, or how should we be treating this new puppy to make sure he or she is comfortable and happy and getting used to this new situation as quickly and as easily as possible?
So a new home should have like safe for the puppy, so no other like dogs that are going to hurt the puppy or intimidate the puppy. I think all puppies should be crate trained, so you should have a puppy crate where that puppy's gonna start out by spending the night, feeding the puppy in the crate. And I think that will help with dog box training too. Knowing that puppy, as a little puppy, he's probably gonna only sleep 6 hours before he's got to pee. But they quickly, I think by the time they're 10 to 12 weeks, they're making it through a reasonable length of time at night. But knowing that if they're going to be inside, they're going to have to be going outside every 30 minutes to an hour to do their business, so that we can get them used. And most puppies catch on to that really quickly. And that's one thing, like if you find the puppy isn't catching on to that or is having accidents in the house, that might be a sign that there's something wrong. Maybe he's got a little UTI or something else going on. So that would be an indication to go, maybe go see his vet.
Well, what if it's a sled dog puppy and you don't intend to have that puppy inside? At what weeks, give or take, is when you can start leaving a puppy outside in the pen?
If it's warm enough, when they're 10 weeks, up here I would have a covering on that pen so that big birds can't get them, honestly. And we've always had that on the puppy pens. I've never had a problem with it, but I know people who have. I would probably keep the puppy until they're 3 months. And usually don't put puppy, for those people who have their yards such that the dogs have to be on chains, I usually wouldn't tie the puppy up full time till they're maybe 4 to 5 months, if possible. That being said, if you've got multiple puppies, it's kind of about that 4 months where it gets more challenging to keep them in a pen together, because they're just sometimes a little too much puppy playing and worse going on.
So we don't want to put the other dogs on chains because we're worried about the other, legs getting caught up or flipping around. So we're trying to keep them, separated, and that doesn't work. So we just let them all run right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, they haven't hurt themselves yet. So any metaphors for puppies yet? I want to give you at least one hard one.
I would say clay, you can just mold them. But they're not quite like that, because
they move a lot more than.
They move a lot more. And they actually all have their already their own little. You can only mold them so much, really. So they are moldable in some sense, but in other sense you have an underlying at least tendency in a given animal, which I think is pretty remarkable.
Okay. So it's like a pot on which we put some clay and sort of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, those are all my big ones. Let's see, what else is there? No, that's it. That's all my questions. Anything off the top of your head that you feel you should communicate about puppies that I haven't talked about?
They're really cute.
They are really cute. That's true.
Sometimes I wish I could just keep them that way.
Yeah, I'm sure many mothers feel the same way about their teenage children.
Oh, it's really fun to see them grow. And then to look back when you have a fully formed dog and you look back and say, what were they like at 8 weeks old? And you look at a whole group, you say, oh yeah, 2020 hindsight, I could have predicted some of the way the things turned out.
Should I be worried about dogs licking my face?
Not super worried.
Now I'm a little bit worried.
Why?
Well, just like you said, I shouldn't be super worried, so that does leave room for some worry. So what are the things that I might consider before letting little puppies lick my face gleefully? Because that's really super cute.
Where else they've been and what else they've been eating. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're just so cute.
We could actually make a whole nother episode on nasty things about puppies.
Wow,
and dogs.
that's a great idea. Nasty things about dogs.